Iraq, it's important to understand that regardless of our opinion about Saddam and the Ba'ath Party and what have you, it was one of very few Arab countries that actually invested a lot in its people, right? So there was a lot of investment in education, in industrialization. So you had a lot of very well-educated population, but who had very limited rights as well, right? And of course, the Iraq-Iran war really depleted them, and then the Kuwait blunder really really started a downward spiral since then. And I cannot overestimate what a tectonic shift the Kuwait war made. The fact that an Arab country invaded another Arab country and the way it split the Arab world between people who were with Saddam, including here you can see Arafat was with Saddam. And I can go into why Arafat stood by Saddam. He wasn't stupid. There was a political reason for that. And it wasn't like a crazy wager. It was more about his own political survival, Arafat's. So that also caused a very important tectonic shift in the Arab world that is at the root of what we see today. At any rate, once Saddam got taken out, there was a lot of chaos, a lot of people got killed, and everybody and their cousins started interfering in Iraq for sure. But it also opened up the space for political dynamism, right? Political activity, right? In ways that were not present in a population that was already well educated and had a lot of opinion, had a lot of sense of self and pride, but also agency that they can make a difference. And that is important because it's the source of why I believe that, again, it's a very fertile prairie. Yes, they have a lot of challenges, but despite all of these challenges, with all the killing, with the fact that there are people in the room in our program where their relatives killed the relatives of that other guy, they're still in the room, speaks to the fact that they themselves feel that Iraq, a united Iraq, is worth fighting for. And despite all of these challenges and not having a party or a political platform that's united, they're still going ahead and are resilient in not giving up. These are the people from I think it was the second. No, this is the first cohort I trained. Yeah, and there's a suspicious character there at the bottom right. Yemen.
Don't Nusayba that way. She's on the call. She won't.
In Yemen, I went to Yemen in 2013. Lovely place. Again, I admit my own Palestinian chauvinism for thinking Palestine is the center of the world. And when I worked on all of these Arab countries, I was really humbled and realized how much potential lay in the whole Arab world. And what the Yemenis, or what I found in Yemen that was really interesting is, again, they have a very strong sense of self and pride in their country, right? They have a long history. But also there were these change agents, like this guy, he was an imam in Taz, a young guy, but he was, again, like Abdullah Muru, and that's why I bring his example. He was an Islamist that both understood or was of the school of thought of Islam that understood Islam means nothing if it's not manifesting itself in constructive, fruitful ways in the community it is in the time it is in. So his theory, or his group's theory of change, was that the challenge in Yemen is that, again, like Palestine, too few people are not involved in politics. The political parties and the tribal leaders are hijacking the political process, and we need to bring politics back to the people. And what they did is that they actually did a scientific survey, right? Where they surveyed, I think they did 6 or 5 provinces. How do Yemenis come to their political views? In the survey, they realized that, in fact, it wasn't Facebook, it wasn't whatever, it was the majority, predominant majority, made their political views from the Friday sermon. Ergo, they decided to make their campaign on how to get more Yemenis involved in politics a religious campaign where they worked with 100 sheikhs who did the Friday sermons. They worked with them for a few weeks to tell them about not democracy per se. You don't need to use that word if it's blasphemous, right? But about political participation and how it's a religious duty of every Muslim to participate. In Islam, there are obligations that are everybody has to do, like prayer and fasting, what have you. And there are obligations that need to be done by enough people. That is, the funeral prayer on somebody who passed away, enough people need to do it. Not everybody has to do it, right? So that's called fard kifaya. So they were arguing that political participation is a universal obligation on every Muslim who can vote, who's eligible to vote. But the conduit to that was a Friday sermon. So their whole project was based on that. So it was that capacity to marry Muslim concepts and principles onto the actual situation on the ground that brings me hope. And this guy is actually a Muslim Brotherhood guy. I found out later on, actually. So it's these kinds of people that bring me home. And why do I put this picture now here? Because again, I'm still involved with the people who are in the working on the conciliation. And the picture they shared with me on WhatsApp, we're together on WhatsApp, is this picture. And here you see that in Aden, which is in the south, there's a big picture thanking the Saudi kings and princes and the Emirati sheikhs for their support to the Yemenis. And on the bottom, in Sana'a, which is controlled by the Houthis currently, a banner for the martyr Sulaimani, Qasim Sulaimani, who for them, fought for them and supported them, right? Like, and they were saying, so long as we, so these are the Yemenis from the group who are saying, so long as we have these kind of posters, we're not going to move forward. We need to stop doing this kind of stuff, right? So again, that's where that's where I see the buds coming out. It's these people, and there are plenty of them, right? Because we shouldn't just focus on the capitals. There are people in the mountains and in the villages and in the southern parts of Tunisia and Algeria that are thinking in those terms. Not not to be corny and exporting democracy, but because genuinely freedom is important to all of us. And what is happening today in the Arab world, and that's why I believe the genie is out of the bottle, is that the argument that national pride and what have you is more important is losing to the argument, what point is national pride? What point is religious law if I am not free to practice it, if I'm not able to live a dignified life? So people are starting to realize that the solution is not, Salah ad-Din or some benevolent dictator that's going to fix everything. We are the solution, and we're going to need to find a way to work this, because we understand now that those in power are interested in maintaining power and are going to do whatever they want to do to sell us whatever they want to sell us. It's our job to not give them that power. It's our job to push them and pull them to where we need them. And for us to be able to do that, we're going to need to talk to each other at the grassroots level. And that's where I think we have, I'm not going to go into Egypt. Well, the only thing I'm going to say about Egypt is the learning process. That is, while there was a lot of hope in the Egyptian revolution, I would argue the majority of us were surprised because we really, all of us, underestimated two things. Well, the organizers in us knew that there was a challenge in the fact that, yes, it's great you got rid of a dictator, but in general, when you have elections after getting rid of an authoritarian regime, not the more popular, the more organized are the ones that win. And it was clear that the Muslim Brotherhood had the discipline, had the organization, had the hierarchy, but more importantly, had the discipline, right? To leverage a democratic system to their advantage way more than any of the other actors, and the other actors completely underestimated that. And the second was that, which arguably none of us saw, was that while everybody understood that the Egyptian army had a lot of stake in the political system, that Mubarak was in fact the facade. It was the army behind all along, right? And it was when the army realized that Mubarak is a liability, they were more than happy to throw him under the bus, right? And that's exactly what transpired. They let the Muslim Brotherhood, have their honeymoon, and then rearranged to reclamp their power. So why do I share this? Because the same actors that we spoke with back in 2012, 2013, the Egyptian actors, no, actually 2013, 2015, on that were part and parcel of the revolution, who were arguing that the Muslim Brotherhood are a danger, and now that Morsi is in power, he's going to change the whole system, and we need to get him out any way we can. And we were telling them, listen, if you like, he was, legitimately elected. You can't be against those. You need to protect the system. They were arguing, listen, we do not have a Supreme Court like you guys. We do not have those institutions that can protect the system. This guy is just going to form another authoritarian regime. Now, what happened with that person that we spoke with, unfortunately, she got in jail after Sisi came in power, and now she learned the lesson. And all of them learned the lesson that ultimately it's not idealistic, or it's not having your head in the cloud by insisting on those principles. It really is the secret of those institutions, the secret of sustainability of democracy in the United States or in other places, is precisely that enough people are protecting the system, are not partisan. It's the fact that it was the Republican Party that told Nixon, listen, you need to get out because now you are a liability, right? So that, I think, again, it brings me to the full circle to the point I was saying before, is while we're seeing all of this mess now, I think what's happening is all of this trial and error and learning on the job by all of these democratic actors and revolutionary actors that are learning, even in Iraq, right? Like, they've done so many revolutions and they got clamped down, but they're learning as well. And Farris and I can share a lot of stories about the amazing things that we're very proud of our ILF fellows who've done amazing things. And I'm more than happy to share some of those examples in the Q&A. I'll stop here and see what questions people have.
Okay, thank you, Nizar. Would you mind shutting down the share screen so we can
Sure.
see the